Evening and welcome to the Buddy Martin Show. This is a Tuesday night. The program's heard Monday through Thursday and sometimes other times. I am Buddy Martin. The program is underway now tonight. We addressed the issue was, are the Gators better at football than they were a couple of months ago? And what did spring practice do for them? And what does the future look like? David Whitley is with us, and also later we've got a few other cats who will be joining Graham Hall and Loren Meadows, all coming your way tonight on the Buddy Martin Show. Tell your friends and neighbors we are on the air right now.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Evening, welcome to the program. Buddy Martin, I love doing the show with you. Thank you all for joining the show tonight. David Whitley, Northwest Florida, is in the pole position. First on the night, all-time for English, and Dan Bond. So stand by, folks. In the orange and blue room, we've got a guy who not only knows sports, talks sports, writes sports, but has a perspective like no other. In fact, let's bring David Whitley on right now. Always one of our favorite times of the week. We can talk about anything with David, but tonight is Gator football. Good evening, Mr. Whitley.
You forgot to mention I was also I think we may be having technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
I got you fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm not seeing any. I'll carry on.
All right, you're good.
Well, thank you for that fine info.
Yes, sir. If you want to log on and come back, you can, but you look and sound fine on our end.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting you as a ventriloquist on my end.
Okay.
Not hearing half your words, I'm afraid.
All right. We'll power through it. And if you turn it off and turn it back on, you can do that. Coming up in about 10 minutes, we've got Graham Hall who will give us an update on the latest roster news. Florida reduces its roster down today by 1 and to the 85 mark. Not too much activity we know of about Florida in the transfer portal, which opened today. It's impossible to keep up with that. Listen, used to be hard enough to keep up with recruiting. Now we have to keep up with it almost a day-by-day basis. I'm sorry, David. I'm not good at that.
Neither am I. I sort of sit these things out. And the thing about this portal is they have 15 days to enter, but that's just to enter. They can stay in it for beyond that. So you may not see some of these guys end up on campuses till August as it goes. And so far, you're not surprised. Manny Nunnery made a sort of an unceremonious exit today, based on his social media goodbye.
Wow, what a crazy message! I haven't figured that one out yet.
No,
the 4th and 46, the N-word. I mean, what is going on there?
There's some bitterness there. When you go out like that, you try to be sympathetic to the player. And figure there's two sides to this story, and he's got his side, and as always, when there's two sides, the truth's probably in the middle. But man, when you go out there burning bridges and sort of taking the low road out, you sort of get a good riddance feel about it.
You do, and I kind of liked the interception. He danced off the field. I thought, this guy has shown signs of being able to play, but obviously there's something missing, and he was out of there in a hurry. So. You hate to see it happen that way, but I guess it does.
Yeah, he entered the portal in January and decided to come back, and then this. So, he'll end up somewhere. I don't think he's going to do better than he had it here. He'll go somewhere where he can play. I don't think it'll be an SEC school, be something like that. But I mean, as all, we wish him well, but if you look back on everybody who does transfer out,
Yeah.
they usually put on Twitter, sort of a magnanimous "thanks for the memories" kind of
Right.
thing, and even if they don't feel it, they do it, just to
Yeah.
sort of maintain their image and stuff. But he just sort of slinked on out of town, trying to throw Austin Armstrong under the proverbial bus on the way, and
Yeah.
the whole deal.
For
And
sure.
again, just the finger pointing is just I just don't like that in any be it a guy leaving the portal or in any situation. I'm sure there's a lot of responsibility to go around, but whatever the problem was, he bears some of it.
Yes, of course. I just heard maybe the best interview with Billy Napier I've heard yet.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody by the name of Josh Pate.
Yeah.
I've seen some of his work. I'm not really that familiar with it, but he got a one-on-one with Billy, a long one, and I heard the last 30 minutes of it, and it was pretty enlightening. I thought to myself, why hasn't Napier done this before?
Mm-hmm.
Be a little more revealing. I mean, he did this one-on-one. He didn't skirt the questions. He addressed them. He said a few things worth remembering. He, of course, said the obligatory things like how great University of Florida was, etc. But it wasn't as much coach speak, and he did address some issues about the fact that he was concerned about things on the staff, but his processes were in place. He feels like he's having a better all season this year because he feels like things are in place now to give him what he wants. He knows who's there, has an idea what he wants to do. And then he went on to say, he said, this all season he feels more like it used to feel in football. So there's just some things. This is what we've been wanting out of Billy Napier. It took Josh Pate, an outsider, to come in and do that. I wish he'd do that more often with local media.
Yeah, well, they've tried to get him to be more open, and to tell the truth, this spring he has been. Prior to this, what you got was him at the podium, 3 times a week during the season, and but never any casual, off the record chit chat, what's really going on kind of stuff. There's been more of that this year. They've tried to get him and other players on the side just to give you more of an insight of what's going on, and he has seemed more relaxed, and you'd think it might be the opposite given how the hot seat stuff going on and how he might be circling the mental wagons about this, but he does seem more at ease because he thinks that after 2 years everything is finally in place.
Yeah.
All these, as he says, the systems are in place, and he can just concentrate more on the coaching angle. I mean, there's always going to be distractions. I mean, portal is always going to be that's just the way of the world now. But now he knows it's the way of the world, and he's got his transfer portal system built up, and he can just it doesn't just the busy work, the stuff you have to worry about. I don't think he has as much to worry about now.
Shoot me. I was going to say, you saw the spring game.
Yeah.
I don't know what you were looking for or what you came. I did not get a chance to read your column. I'm sorry. I usually like to do that.
That wasn't any good. That's all right.
No, I'm sure it was as good as anybody. The spring game. And now, what was your takeaway? And do you think this team is better than you thought coming out of spring ball? I realize we can't translate it into W's and L's yet. Do you think they're better off than you thought they'd be? Are you as concerned or more concerned or less concerned about the future of Napier's program?
I'm equally concerned. I figured that they would be looking better than they were last year at this point. I mean, they need to be. It's another year of program, another year of the systems, as they say, and getting his kind of players in there. And so you expected it to be better. But, again, it's you said it, all 1,000 times. It's so hard to judge when you got intra-squad games going on. They're playing against each other, and to gauge that, it is very like last year where we all point to how the defense looked good in the spring game, and then it looked terrible come September. But I did think the defense looked better. I think that you can see there is a lot more depth there. You can build. I mean, I think the last few years you could point to maybe maybe the starting 11 or 10 guys were really SEC caliber players. Now I think it goes maybe 15 to 20 deep, if not more. And the young guys are developing. So and the transfers, where the need positions, safety, they seem to. I think that's going to be a help. And there's the young guys are coming on, but they bought in the experience. I mean, they still need if back to the transfer portal, they can always use more players. I mean, heck, they probably need another linebacker now that Nunnery's gone.
Wide receiver, probably.
Yeah, be looking for a wide receiver. I mean, the star was Trey Wilson. I mean, he is just
amazing player.
Yeah. I accidentally the column I did write said, well, he'll probably be in the NFL next year. Well, someone pointed out, no, he can't be because you have to be out of high school 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. So he'll be back. He'll be back unless he gets a really big Brinks truck backed up from another school, which he will. But Florida will, I'm sure, do everything it can to mollify him.
Yeah.
In that area.
Well, we're going to get in a minute. We'll get our beat guy that follows it closer than you and I do. Talk about rosters. I was looking at one particular roster, the 2 deep, and it was some subjectivity of the person who put it together. And I was thinking, if that is the roster, I think they're pretty good first 22. I think their first 22 can compete, and I think, as someone said, when you got the QB, you have hope. You have a chance of being good. And they certainly have that. And I just love before what I saw out of DJ Lagway. And I like him even more after seeing him on the hoof some. So we'll get you and I and Graham will sort of look at the roster and see what's what. Certainly, we got some more running backs we didn't know about. I didn't know Sammy Ball was still around.
Well, I tell you what, he's been reincarnated. But it is funny. You think of how many people named Ball, and I've only heard one, Sammy.
Yeah.
So the second kid, it's a
golfer named Laura Ball.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Oh my goodness. So, well, I'm trying to think. Sammy Ball and Laura. Now they were different generations. So
yes, I think so. Quite a bit
on this.
Yes.
But I'll admit because you hadn't heard anything about him really in spring either.
No.
Throughout the whole.
Apparently, the people who knew about him knew. Here's a guy who was big. Was he 238 or something?
Yeah.
Fast. He's quick. He hits hard. And I thought, who is that guy? And there were 2 or 3 impressive people on the field. He was one. And
coming out. Yeah, because they were giving him the ball first. And I was like, holy smokes, and I thought, why haven't you heard, anything about him all spring?
Yeah.
But obviously he was doing something because he was, one of the starting on, I forgot his on orange or blue team. But, man, you can see, that the kid, he's and I was like, oh, he's just a freshman. First of all, he's a transfer. It's like I felt dumb for
I did too. I thought, well, where'd this guy come from?
Yeah.
Apparently, Saban was after him as well on their national evaluation. Said, according to what I read today on the transcripts, I'm looking at it right now. It said, Billy said, another rookie that put on a show out there today. It was fun to watch. He's 238 pounds. And I went to Jaden's school in January. Initially thought he was a linebacker. I go to the school. Said that was the national evaluation. We found out he wants to play running back. And we had a really good evaluation, so we had high grades. He ended up going to Arkansas. When I was a little kid, I remember the first time I went to that school, I saw his dad actually played linebacker at Columbia High School. I played against his dad. His dad played linebacker. Phenomenal family, class act. Anyway, so he knew about him. And by the way, he also can run the route tree as a receiver. He was a Wildcat quarterback. He played linebacker and safety in this game he saw. So, man, what an athlete this guy is. What a find he is. They got to give him the rock, don't they, son?
Yeah, it's funny. That's been the sort of the MO of the Florida backfield for the last seems like half dozen years. They do it by committee. There's no one guy, and they all do pretty well. And and it makes you think of well, they shouldn't have done it by committee so much with Damian Pierce. They should have been giving him the rock a lot
Yeah,
more.
really.
Uh, but you got Montrell Johnson still there and other guys, Trayon Webb, and so you can see they're gonna be splitting those carries between all those guys. And
somebody said Montrell Johnson was, I don't know this, as returning as the leader in rushing in the league. I don't know. Carries the most yardage carry or something. I'm not sure.
Because every other good back went to Ohio State. It seemed.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's interesting. So anyway, your takeaway now is we're going to have Graham here in a minute. Your takeaway is, what does Florida football look like now to you, as opposed to how it looked before?
Yeah, I think defense will definitely be improved. Well, again, that's not saying much. It's sort of like how could it get any worse? No, but you can see that between the young guys getting more experience and will be improving, and just the veterans that they brought in will help. We're still not talking. They're not a Georgia defense yet, but they're not going to be Georgia State defense anymore. And offensive line. It's still. I feel sort okay about the skill guy. You still need more wide receiver help. And a line, it's sort of hard to tell. It seemed like the line was giving up a lot of sacks the other day. Mm-hmm. Sort of hard to tell because, as Billy said after the game, it was not non-contact for the QB. So he was the one calling the sacks, and he says it's always iffy. They reach out and touch the QB or whatnot. But I thought the line, collapsed the defensive line collapsed the offensive line probably more than Rod Sale wanted to see, the offensive line coach. It's like last year, you got no offensive line, you don't have much, you got a problem. And I don't think they're there, but I still think that, that's an area to keep an eye on. And potential is there, but maybe I'm overly skeptical, but I just got to see the offensive line, do it on the field first.
Yeah. All right, let's go get our friend in the orange and blue room. We'll just say we'll come back in a minute and talk about our sponsor tonight. We appreciate all of them making it possible, including Meldon Law, and we'll talk more about them. Let's go see if our friend Graham Hall is back here to join us on the program. Good evening to you, Graham. How you doing?
Hey, buddy. How you doing? David, good seeing you.
You too, Stanley Park.
Thank you. It's If you ever go to Vancouver, I encourage everyone to go to Stanley Park. It is absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Is that where they make the Stanley Cups there? Is that where they make? Vancouver's a beautiful city, that's for sure. Good to see you in the press box again. Although your beard is longer and hair is longer, and I almost miss you when you walk by. It looks good. I just didn't see.
I need a trim. I'm not looking as youthful as you these days.
It's okay. You look good. I just didn't expect you to see it full regalia.
My buddy did in 1968.
I could never grow that much hair in my lifetime, let alone a few months. So
right after the Vietnam War protest he attended, sticking the daisy in the
World War II. Yeah. So we're just doing takeaways from the spring game. It is what it is. You can't make that much out of it. We had the obvious comments about Baugh, who I think is probably a distant cousin to Sammy Baugh. Well, what a player he looks like. How did he slip through? How did we miss him? This guy pops up, 230 pounds, can run quick, fast, and looks like a real running back. And I thought to myself, how long has it been since Florida has had a true power back? Which this guy could be. Now here he's a great athlete, can play linebacker or safety, can run the whole route tree as a wide receiver. What do you're a good reporter, Graham. What did you heard about Ball?
Yeah, I actually don't think he really, no offense to anyone who doesn't pay attention to recruiting, I don't think he really fell through the cracks here. He was a guy that Arkansas was after, Alabama was looking at, had a lot of SEC interest. Like you mentioned, a two-way player. Billy Napier was familiar with his father. I think that this is a guy who, he comes in later than KD Daniels, and a late addition, but certainly I think people who were familiar with his game were very optimistic that he'd be able to see the field at an early rate. And obviously, it is the spring game, so take it with a grain of salt. We don't really know how it's going to impact the upcoming season, but this is a guy who has impressed, and you didn't hear, I think, a lot of internal worries about Trevor Etienne's departure. Maybe from an optic standpoint, it was a blow, but I think Florida was confident that they could replace him this upcoming cycle. And I think that it remains to be seen with Jaden Baugh and whether it's Katie Daniels, kind of them both contributing together. I think that both those guys are going to be better blockers than Trevor Etienne was within the next 2 years. And I think that this is a guy who looks very intriguing, and it wasn't just him that I thought looked good. I think one of the overall takeaways is that, from the number 2 to the number 5 back on this roster, as much as we maybe were a little bit critical of the offensive line, as you guys were talking about, I think that they established the ground game at a really high rate. Give even, Jacoby Jackson a whole lot of credit. Another guy we had been hearing some really good things about throughout the spring, a former JUCO guy that looks like he's proving to be a wise addition, even if he's not, a top 3 back on this roster right now. I do think that one of the big takeaways, Jaden Baugh looked good. Katie Daniels maybe didn't have his best game. I think he would say that. But this is a unit that looks like they're able to run the football pretty well.
So I'm hearing things like all of a sudden Florida's running back room is loaded. Is that true?
I wouldn't go that far whatsoever. I think that absolutely, I think it's going to be capable. And that's really all they need is some balance this year. If they can have balance where they can establish the run and allow Graham Mertz to continue progressing in this offense, he's getting more comfortable. He has some continuity now with Billy Napier as a play caller. I think that if they can have some balance this year and create some holes for these guys to run through, especially if they're going to use DJ Lagway with some packages this season, which I do think looks a little more likely right now than it did maybe even a few weeks ago. If they can do that, then this offense shouldn't be the problem this year. I think that we can be honest and say that the defense, I think, deserves to be the one under the microscope right now.
I want to talk about the defense in just a minute, about the 3 new coaches, how they've impacted what the most improved area might be. But first, I've got to talk about DJ Lagway. I know it's kind of like jumping on the train. I've loved that guy from the first time I saw his video. Not just because he's a good thrower and a good passer. He's got something extra to me. I see occasionally athletes like this. As I said, he's very intentional when he does. When he breaks from the huddle, he takes command. He knows where he's going with the football. He has the ability to get rid of it in a hurry. He's pretty accurate right now. He even ball fakes with certain skills, which I love. A lost starter, an old quarterback. I always loved the guy doing how to fake, and so I liked him going in. I love what I saw after the spring game. I know I'm not going to coordinate him next year. He's not going to be the starting quarterback. But what I see in this guy, as I said earlier, tell me if I'm wrong, David. You go ahead and shoot me down. I think Mertz is a really good quarterback. I think this guy, Lagway, has potential, there's that word, to be a great player. David, what do you think?
Oh, yeah. I think that in two years, Lagway will be or 3 years, Lagway will be a much better quarterback than Mertz is. And I think he'll probably be a much better quarterback than 98% of the quarterbacks out there, because, what we saw, we knew he had the ability and we saw him out there, from day one flashing it, but it's just, you got to figure the game out. And he seems to be figuring it out at a decent pace. But I think, Billy probably had it right when he said, the best thing that happened to this team, or at least with Lagway was, as we look back, will be that Gary Mertz decided to come back for another year.
Yeah.
Not only to take snaps, but also to mentor Lagway. And they seem to, get along fine, no friction. And, as far as you can tell, I mean, Lagway, he does seem to have, a maturity about him, although we can't really tell. We haven't been exposed to him all, but just the way you said, he carries himself in a professional manner. And, a few of those throws the other day were real. I mean, we knew he had a strong arm, but he dropped one in there, a nice touch pass for like 32 yards to Taylor Spierto, who I don't think has gotten enough run on this whole thing. The great Taylor Spierto, overlooked.
Where'd that guy come from?
Yeah.
Graham, I know you knew who he was. I've heard his name,
A
but
walk on, right? May
he
still be a
looks
walk
terrific,
on.
doesn't he?
Yeah. Does he have a scholarship yet, Graham?
He was briefly put on scholarship, to my knowledge. I don't think he is right now for the upcoming season. But if you go back to the depth charts, he was a guy listed third string last year on the depth chart, had earned rave reviews for how he was in practice. I think he cut a couple of passes last year, but a guy who certainly, that's what the spring games are about in my mind. You have a chance to really spread the ball out and give guys a chance who may not see the field too much in this upcoming season to really have their moment to shine in the swamp. And that's one of the things that, when I watched the Ole Miss spring game and saw them, slurping down hot dogs and playing 7v7 football and whatnot, my overall takeaway, as much as we want to try and assess the football and the level of play, my overall takeaway was that it was just great to have a regular game here. You guys know
Amen.
There were years where we didn't even have that. There wasn't enough offensive linemen for them to be able to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
You're seeing that more and more in the transfer portal era. There's a little bit more hesitance to even play a game because that's extra footage that you can put out on some players, some underrated players, and then a coach comes calling and they poach them away because they saw how good they were in a spring game. It seems that we want to make fun of the spring game every single year and not fully appreciate it. I see people doing that time and time again, and they're going to be a thing of the past before we know it, just based on the way the portal is heading. So I was just appreciative that they were able to play a full game.
Yeah. I am absolutely with you on that for sure. And I agree. You're right. What we saw out of Oxford was kind of a pitiful sight. I mean, I get it. It's like a big tailgate party and what have you. But what is the spring game? I'll leave it to you guys to answer. What is the spring game supposed to be, and what is it supposed to do, David?
Well, I think part of it is that fan aspect. Yeah, that just to have it's the one chance between January and September where football fans can act like football fans again and get their fix. And I think it was good to have it on a Saturday, especially that. I mean, it was such a beautiful Saturday where fans could get and show up. And I mean, the crowd was so. But they announced
48,000 is not too bad, as someone pointed out.
Yeah,
that's an accurate count. But
I think that they will be announcing 40,000. You can just book it for the next 50.
Yeah.
Every spring game will have 40,000. Yeah. I think that's the minimum that they will have. And just for fans to go out there and just see people and do people and after the game you saw all the people on the field for an hour. I mean the line to get Lagway and Mertz's autograph was still 50 yards long, like an hour after the game. So, I mean, it's good from that PR standpoint. And you're right. I think the coaches like it because they get to see these guys in action. I think they do worry, as Graham mentioned, about a guy looking too good who's second, third teamer, and someone else spots him and says, "Hey, come, we can give you a better spot and better deal over here where you might have flown under the radar otherwise."
Such an important point that Graham made about at least some facsimile of football.
Yeah.
I mean, I could take a case for saying, you know what, make it count. You know how high schools have jamborees?
Yeah.
They bring in 4 teams, they play a quarter against each other. And you can take the money and raise the money and give it a good, of course, coaches, oh no, we don't get them hurt or whatever. I get it. There's so much money on the table now with the 12-team playoff. They're afraid to get a player hurt. But I mean, what they did at Ole Miss made a mockery out of football, in my opinion. I hate that.
It looked like the NBA All-Star game, where
yes,
show up for the party. All we were missing was Lizzo performing at halftime or something like that. Although I got to admit the halftime show, it was sort of good to see everybody on the team get an award. And I think eventually they're going to run out of players to name awards after.
Yeah, really, exactly. The David Whitley typewriter award. All right, I'm going to do this. Stay with you for a second, Graham. I want you guys to get into some nuts and bolts here on defense. The 3 new coaches, the impacts they're having, what part of the defense looks better, stronger. Let me go do this commercial. I'll come back. And I'll have my guys give me the insights on, is the defense going to be better? Hopefully. If so, how and what's the most improved part and what coaches are playing what roles? Stay tuned. We're coming back just a moment with Graham and David after this timeout. Jeffrey Meldon. Jeffrey, you do a show where you ask a lot of questions. I've got one for you right now, okay, regarding how do you know whether your case is being handled right and what to do about it. In medicine, you can get a second opinion if you're not satisfied with the doctor's opinion that they have. And do you have that in law? Can you do that with lawyers?
Yeah, buddy. As a matter of fact, we get quite a few calls from folks that have signed up, particularly with the big box law firms that they do a hell of a good job of putting ads on TV, but after that, they don't really measure up to the way we try to create a client experience that's outstanding. And we're always willing to review a case and give a second opinion, just like with a doctor, because not all law firms are created equal.
I guess that's the normal thing. Just go to Meldon Law, Google it, and find out, and just give them a call. And like you say, if you come in, you get to see a Meldon. You don't get Jeffrey Meldon Law. You won't back down, and you can go see them and see about your case and get them to review it. All right, back with my special guest tonight, Graham Hall. Haven't seen Graham in a long time. I used to be able to see him every now and then when he was about in 10th grade, first starting out. Now he's gotten to be an old guy. He's a star now, but we don't get him very often. But David and I are glad to have you, and they're always glad to have David. All right, guys, 3 guys. We'll mention their names. I want you to tell me if you see their impact, and if so, how, and what you think of what's happening to the defense. The coaches, Roberts, Harris, and Chapman. Have they made a difference? Apparently they have, based on what we've been hearing, and it looks like there is a better defense, and what part of it is the most improved? Graham, you go first.
Yeah, I think Gerald Chapman and Will Harris absolutely have made a difference. I think that 2 very energetic guys, Gerald Chapman especially, David, you were out there every single time. You could hear him from across the field 100 yards away. His energy is just, it's pretty old school, buddy. I think you would appreciate just the mentality of coaching a player aggressively, not being afraid to run them off and critique them because you want what's best out of them. And it seems to be, maybe this is the old head coming out of me a little bit. It seems to be that's kind of a dying art here in a sense with the transfer portal. You don't want to say the wrong thing and rub someone the wrong way. And then the next thing you know, they're looking elsewhere here. Gerald Chapman doesn't subscribe to that theory. Someone who I think is just a very energetic coach. Now, will that lead to improvement from his unit this season? I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm convinced that they're going to have a 180 turnaround and they're going to have 12 sacks this season. I don't think his coaching to that extent is something that I'm willing to go out there and say, oh, this is going to lead to an all-around turnaround, because it's most the same personnel. I think the addition of Joey Slackman will be really, really beneficial for this unit. But I think it remains to be seen still, maybe I'm not a sunshine pumper in this regard, but I want to see actually how they look on August 31st. Same thing with Will Harris. I think that you can absolutely give him a whole lot of praise. The way he talks about technique, getting hit in practice, those things look really, really good. But will it lead to all-around improvement? I don't necessarily know, but the same thing I said with Chapman. I think that the additions that they made in the transfer portal, getting Jason Marshall back, obviously, hopefully getting a full year healthy of Devin Moore, but then improving the third level of the defense, getting Asa Turner from Washington, a guy that Will Harris coached previously, getting Triquez Bridges. I think that obviously DJ Douglas, maybe he's a little bit behind the pecking order with him, with the rest of those guys. Jordan Castell comes back. The safety unit should be much better. The big question for the secondary for me is, what are they going to do at the star position? I think that Sharif Denson has stood out, especially Aaron Gates could certainly be an option, but that's 2 sophomores right there, right? That are a redshirt freshman as well, that you're counting on for maybe the most difficult role in the secondary. So I gotta see what the product looks like when the season gets here. But from external impressions of the coaching, I think that you have to be really enthusiastic about the energy and what you're hearing from the personnel.
Well done. Okay, now with 3 of these three corners we're hearing about, of course, we know about Jason Marshall. Devin Moore, we thought he was going to be something special. He got hurt. And now Jakeem Jackson. Corners are in good shape, looks like. What's been the most impressive thing about that secondary to you, David?
Well, as Graham said, remains to be seen. You can all make a case for all of them looking impressive in certain aspects of it. I'm like Graham in the fact that I think so far when it comes to the overall defense, they've won the press conferences. The coaches have, and which is a good thing. But if you look back, every time you get a new coach, I'm hard pressed to think of a new coach who didn't get rave reviews at first, and then you see a year in, it's like, well, maybe this guy didn't work out. That said, just on a pure human gut level, talking to the two, the three guys they brought in, I came away very impressed with what they were saying and how they carried themselves. And the players, of course, the players always say they're buying in, whether they do or not. But I tend to think that they are. So a lot of these players now, they've been through a few coaches, and I think they're a little bit more wizened to things, and they know. First you're gonna, whoever it is, if you're a young guy, you're gonna come in and see the coach, and you have nobody to compare them to. I think they do have to compare them to, like especially those secondary guys. They've been through a lot of coaches now, so I think that they like what they have out there now. I mean, there were obviously problems last year. I mean, one guy we read about Raymond when they got him in, and he's been a great assistant, but it just didn't work out here. He just went the whole Austin Armstrong and him. They just didn't see eye to eye on a lot of the coverages and stuff, and that was okay. I mean, so they brought in a guy who fits what they want to do a little bit more, and doesn't mean that Corey Raymond is a bad coach. It just turned out to be not a great fit here. So I think these guys have fit in pretty well. I mean, as far as specifics, I mean, I think they could be much better in every category down the line, because the young guys are getting better. And like Graham said, they bought in. Safety should definitely. I mean, safety's been sort of a cover your eyes spot for the last few years. But I think that won't be may not be a strength, but it won't be an Achilles heel anymore. But again, we shall see August 31st. And now you can pretty much make the case for anybody being great.
Yeah. All right, so I'll let you get out of here, Graham, with this one. But it was the first day of the portal being open. Not that much activity, although nunneries left. We know this is the time of year when there's minimal change. There was some concern about a couple of things. I know Georgia lost a running back. And there's a rule, I guess, that if you transfer in the SEC, you can't play in the fall. Is that right, Graham? After this date?
That's the new rule. Yep. If you transfer after spring camp, after April 15th, you're going to have to apply for a waiver to be in the SEC if you're going from another SEC school. And that's a case-by-case basis where you can't really bank on it, where it's not really worth taking someone, in my opinion, if you're not certain that they're going to get approved for that waiver, because then you risk wasting a spot. So I would kind of, if you see anyone from the SEC entering the portal and think that they would be a good addition to your team, don't get your hopes up.
Well, there's two people. There's one offensive lineman from Orlando who had 350 offers or some ridiculous amount of that, who has left Texas, was it? And Florida has got his eye on him. But I don't know if it's Texas. I got it written down here someplace. And then the running back from Georgia also, who is available. If Florida took him, he couldn't play. Any activity? They got their roster is pretty much set right now, Graham, isn't it?
Yeah, Florida's right at 85 scholarship guys right now, so they're going to have to wait on further attrition before they can say, "Hey, come here and play for us." Peyton Kirkland, the offensive lineman you mentioned out of Texas,
yes.
Wouldn't get my hopes up about him. As you said, Texas is in the SEC now. I wouldn't expect the running back from Georgia to come here. Those days are, I think, a little bit more in the past than people would like. But, hey, go get Cormani McLean. I joke. I don't think that'll happen. No. But I do think there's some talent out there. This was a little bit less of an exciting portal opening day than I think many people hyped it up. It was kind of it was it was like the vault, where there was really nothing in there of substance right now. And I think that if you can wait a little bit longer, and this staff has maybe gotten some criticism for being too patient, but if you wait the next couple of days, I think you'll see some more good players enter the portal, and you'll have a little bit more attrition from Florida side, from what I'm hearing, that you'll be able to target some top targets.
Yeah, I want to mention this and let you go. And Lauren's standing by. He can probably hear this too. Florida supposedly has made contact with 2 wide receivers. If you believe social media, Penn State wide receiver Keandra Lambert Smith is one, and Colorado State wide receiver Justice Ross Simon are 2 names being mentioned. Any of you guys know about any of those players? And can you confirm about that, Graham?
I can confirm they've made contact with both. I don't know the extent of those contacts. I do think that Florida is trying to expedite their process where they're no longer looking for as much field level film right now. And maybe that leads to a little bit more of an expedited process. But both of those guys had 20 plus schools reach out to them today. I would be surprised if they didn't find another home pretty quickly, but I wouldn't rule Florida out whatsoever. I think that Florida has a need at wide receiver to get a little bit more proven production, and both of those names make sense to me.
Great stuff, Graham Hall. Appreciate it. Good to have you back, buddy.
Absolutely, and I want to wish David congratulations for finishing first place in the APSC Awards. Well deserved. Fantastic.
What?
I hope everyone check it out.
You didn't even, you dogged you.
Yeah,
You didn't even
he's
tell
being
me
all humble
that.
about it. Everyone
That's
needs to read the story.
wonderful.
David hopefully will tell you about it, but
Wow,
deserved.
I'm glad you mentioned it. Oh, that's wonderful. What a great award, David. Congratulations. I'll let you buy me a drink at Spurrier's.
Yeah. Well, if Graham hadn't left the Sun, he would be doing it too. But at 24/7, I don't. It's sort of a different league that they do. But I will say this: when he left the Sun, he didn't go out with guns blazing like Manny Nunnery.
He keeps his guns holstered.
Uh-huh.
All right, that's wonderful. Well, thanks for mentioning that, Graham. Good talking to you. Let's do it again. All right, so while we're waiting on Lauren, Lauren's here. Let me get this information on my sponsor and get Coach Meadows on here. We can't get but 2 at a time on with this Wi-Fi lady. It's been a problem in that regard. Let's see if we can find him. And there he is by the magic of computers. Lauren, good. How are you, buddy?
Hanging in there, man. A little under the weather, but
I'm sorry you're feeling bad.
Yeah.
You look good.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about Titan MRI, and you'll feel better. Okay. Florida's North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing facility. Want you to know they're open now for serving greater Gainesville, North Florida with different kind of abilities to take care of the customer. They focus on the patient. I want you to have great customer service. They also make it available if you want after hours appointments or weekends. They can do that for you by appointment. So if you have a problem you can't get an MRI done during the working hours, you call them and they'll make a special appointment for you. At Titan MRI, they focus on things like that for the patient. If you have no insurance, you can go there. You can have cash or a card instead. So if you need an MRI, I highly recommend you contact them at Titan MRI, TitanMRI.com. Well, Coach Meadows, we've been talking about what we saw at the spring game, what our takeaways were. Let me let you weigh in on that for a couple of sentences or so to catch up. David and I and Graham have said our piece. What'd you see? What'd you think?
Well, I think I saw a team that is really trying to do its best to improve, and what I mean by that is improve both in communication, improve its roster, its depth, its level of talent, and what I particularly paid a lot of attention to is just how things worked on defense. Was the defense playing with what I like to call on a string, playing connected football? And I think you saw that on Saturday. I mean, obviously, you can't do a lot in the spring game. You don't want to get anybody hurt, but I particularly watched the 2 safeties, Asa Turner and Tyquezi Bridges, and we didn't have anybody that looked like that last year. They looked sound, they looked committed, they looked like they were in communication, truly understood one another. And just the defense as a whole looked a little bit more connected. Now, will that translate to the regular season? We'll see. They're going to see some pretty gifted people at quarterback. And any good quarterback nowadays, with the way the rules are, can make a defense look pedestrian. But I thought the defense looked a little better. I thought Pup Howard Jr. is definitely an upgrade. And the thing about it is, they look good on defense without Shamar James, Justice Boone, and a couple other guys that could be key players there. So, I mean, I thought that, you definitely could see the roster upgrade. Billy Napier mentioned that, he thought that the roster was where it needed to be at this time after the game. That could be kind of a gift and a curse, because you said it, now you got to go out and prove it. But that just one of the I mean, it's hard to tell for the way that things were, but definitely stood out there. Obviously, I look forward to the day that DJ Lagway can actually take off, tuck it, and run, and really see what he could do in the open field. That was impressive, and obviously, I don't know what they'll do with him, if they'll have a little package or something for him, but because I do agree with Billy Napier. When you put Lagway on, you got to take 15 off, and I think Graham Mertz is right where he left off with his control and command of the offense, and the running backs look good, which I think is one of the more underrated running back rooms in the SEC, and so that just kind of looking at it from face value, the big thing, defense, a lot more connected.
Yeah. I don't know. Certainly can't make any big judgments on what we saw. David and I talked earlier. There was an interview tonight that Billy did with Josh Pate. I don't know Josh Pate. He's been around. And it was a very good interview. And he was more revealing of his program of himself. He didn't try to be Nick Saban, and he did admit to some shortfalls and things. He was very positive in his approach, and not just blowing smoke. He made a couple of comments that he did start the questions, by the way, and he did, of course, make the obligatory comment to his bosses, the AD and the president. But he also talked about, and he addressed, it's funny, is that when he was asked by Pate, what do you think the perception is here, what you're doing, and he asked Pate, well, what do you think? And Pate was real honest. He said, what I saw here in the last couple of hours inside the program doesn't match with what I think the perception is out here. I think the perception is out there is that it's different, chaos, etc. And pretty frank discussion. I thought to myself, I wish Billy would do more of this. It's been 2 years now. He hasn't revealed much of himself to us. And I give the credit to Pate for being a good interviewer, staying out of the way, and asking the right questions. Everything from calling plays. There wasn't any stunning answers. There's nothing that he said that was earth-shaking. But he did own up to the issues and did talk about them. I guess he said he felt like more about how he felt so much better about the coaching now because in the off season, I'm feeling a little bit more like I used to feel about football. He says I think we're playing from the lead on our roster management. We feel like we can now take care of other things. So it was a very interesting interview. I was wondering, and I've asked David this, if you see any different takeaways, Loren, or you have any different vibe than you had before, and how do you feel about the progress that the team might have?
Well, I think that, I agree. I mean, in some ways, it can't get any worse. And I think sometimes when a team doesn't necessarily perform up to par, that there has to be some type of in their defense, there has to be some type of chaos or disgruntlement. I mean, they just have lost a lot of close football games. I mean, you think about it, in the last 2 years, it's not a football team has really gotten blown out, but there are the little things that have cost them some of those close ball games that, fortunately he was able to win at Louisiana. So,
and some self-inflicted too.
Right. Well, and some, but they're not the only team. But I will say that I agree that Billy Napier, answered Josh Pate. I like Josh, and Josh can be very frank at times, but he's also been one of those people that has always been, to his credit, this is the University of Florida. And the University of Florida has everything they need to be a top 15, top 10 program year in, year out. And he said that with Billy Napier in mind. So, I think that at this point, like Billy said, you learn, it doesn't get easy. And you wrote about it, buddy, in your book. Urban Meyer didn't have it overnight. He might have had the concept overnight, but they had to sit at his house and revamp the entire offense, or that thing was going to go left. So I mean, things happen, and I think that we will give it year 3. I think a lot of people, given the Florida Gators the out with the schedule, you're in the SEC. The schedule is the schedule. Steve Spurrier played that schedule. Ron Zook played that schedule. Urban Meyer played that schedule. Jim McElwain played that schedule. The schedule is the schedule, and there are games that can be won, and the Gators could be in every football game if they go out and do the things they're supposed to do. So, I mean, I would agree with. I'm sure I'll have to go back and look at it. I didn't know that. I really like Josh, and I would like to go back and see that. But I would venture to say that it's one of those things where, like I said, Billy Napier feels pretty good about his roster, feels good about the buy-in getting, feels good about the way that his staff is made up, and frankly, I got him winning 7, 8 ball games again. Now, would that happen? We'll see.
David, spring football is over. As a columnist, your interests shift to other things. Congratulations on winning the award. Did not know about that. One of the most interesting topics, I doubt Lauren cares much about it, is what happened in Augusta. And I saw today that the ratings for the Masters were really low, 20% off, which surprises me, given the spectacular show that Scotty Scheffler put on. And I wondered if the LIV has done this to golf or what's going on. Did you have any thoughts about that, David? Did you watch the Masters, and what was your take on it?
Yeah, that's the one sporting event that I consider appointment viewing, and I really go out of my way to watch it, regardless of who's playing. But not everybody feels that way. I think that the LIV and the civil war that they've had has taken away. I mean, the players talked about it, have been talking more and more about it, how it's alienating the fan, because the fans don't, they hear about these guys whining over, the guy's got $100 million contract, $200 million contract, and they just see a bunch of rich pampered guys arguing over money, and it's diluted the product, and it's taken away just from. I mean, people just want to turn on golf. Golf is really the ultimate escape from that kind of. Has been from the other stuff that you get with the other sports, where you hear a guy, you mention a player, and next thing you mention is how he affects the salary cap on that team and whether they can sign. Golf, you never have to deal with that stuff. Guys just showed up and played. But, that is intruded on golf now, and so I think that has alienated fans. The Tiger factor always plays into it. Although he played this week, but he wasn't getting any eyeballs on the weekend in help ratings. And Scheffler, I think great guy, great golfer, but not exciting. Unfortunately, he's just not. I mean, when you ask your average person who might a non-golf fan who they might tune, who your golfers are, they'll still go Tiger, Rory, Phil, the old guy. Scheffler's just one of those great golfers who just none of them really move the proverbial needle right now.
Yeah.
And and plus it wasn't that competitive either. I mean, what do you end up winning by 4 shots, 5 shots? So all that played into it.
Oh, I loved it. I guess I just love the Masters. I know we don't talk golf, Lauren, very much. No. Did you watch the Masters, any of it? Did you see it? And what did you think if you did?
No, I didn't watch it. I'm not a big golf guy, but I will say this. Is this true that Rory McIlroy hadn't won a major in 10 years? Is that true? I did not know that.
Yeah.
And so,
yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah.
I was kind of interested to see, I'm kind of a Rory guy. He kind of took over as my favorite once Tiger kind of started to suffer. But, obviously being a historian of sports and all great Jack Nicklaus being in Ohio when, I've always kind of followed and saw who won I was a Penn steward because he would always wear the cool little NFL team outfits.
Yeah. He was great. He really was.
So, but obviously I think, golf is going to need a new Tiger. They're going to need somebody.
Well, that's not going to happen. There's only one Tiger. There'll never be another Tiger.
I thought DeChambeau might have been because he was kind of like a baby.
Quirky.
quirky. Yeah, so they just, I mean, I think that's what they'll need to maybe bring the
Scotty
viewers.
Scheffler is a great player. He's a great
Yeah,
player. I mean, look. I mean,
like
Shane told me this morning he thought he was the greatest golfer he'd ever seen. So I mean, I don't want. I think the LIV may have had something to do with it, David. Poisoned
Yeah.
the well a little bit, and just doesn't feel the same way. I don't know if you heard John Rahm's comments or not. That people were kind of indifferent to him, but what did he expect? You know, mess with people's living, but it's definitely something different there. That's for sure.
Yeah, what they need is, I mean, not a great, just a character like Lauren mentioned. DeChambeau, he's the kind of guy that your non-golf fan would tune in to see because he's sort of an oddball that people can relate. I mean, the ultimate would have been, was John Daly. People still mention him. I bet if he'd have played, he'd still get as many eyeballs as anybody because he's just crazy John Daly. And you look at the leaderboard now, and I mean, they are great golfer and good guys. And I mean, Scheffler, he's the kind of guy you'd want your daughter to marry for sure. And I mean, besides the fact he's probably won about 25 million, just in the past month on the golf tour.
Well,
yeah, but he's not an exciting, he's not. If you're writing a screenplay, you don't really write that character.
Right.
You want to write another guy to get eyeballs to stir that interest.
All right, guys, in 15 or 20 seconds, it's over. The spring football's over. We go from here. We'll say goodnight. Just give me a quick blurb. David, spring football's over. Where does Florida football go from here?
Into hibernation, but I thought it was interesting what you related about Josh Pate, how Pate said he came in and it was the perception outside is so different from the perception inside. I think it's true. I think that there's this great narrative out there that there's chaos run amok here. I mean, Etienne left, Princely, the best off defensive player. They lost 5 in a row. Billy hot seat, just the same stuff. That if all you go by is what you hear, from afar, that's what you go with. And you read it, and you're still going to be reading a lot of that for the next, throughout the summer. But there, when you get around Billy, as you know, he's got a quiet confidence about him and a serenity through all this. And you do come away with a different vibe if you're around the program. Doesn't mean they're going to win 9, but I do think that Lauren mentioned, if they won 7 and we're on the upswing, I think Billy's okay. And 8 would be, and your boy Spurrier says 8-4 with a bowl win. So
yeah, there you go. Lauren, 20 seconds.
Yeah, I agree with David. I mean, it kind of goes into hibernation and kind of guessing. They'll add a few little parts, but the big thing for them, if I would just really, I mean, they just really need to establish a tone on defense. I mean, if they can go out and play good defense and get teams off the field, this can be a pretty good football team. Great football team, not sure, but it can be a pretty good football team. So I would say, hunker down, get healthy, get those guys like Shamar James and Justice Boone healthy, for the summer. Get everybody locked in, and then get ready to play good defense and get teams off the field in 2024.
You're playing against a great competitors, get a chance to make a name for yourself. Opportunity exists. Guys, great job, Lauren. David, appreciate it. Talk to you again next week, all right? Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. All right, David Whitley and Loren Meadows. I want to wrap up by telling you about WinStar Medical Research, one of our longtime sponsors. They want you to know that clinical trials exist today to bring better therapies to the public safely, and they would not exist without the commitment of you volunteers. If you could volunteer for one of the many clinical research trials, you'd be helping a lot of people, including yourself, and you might get compensation for your time and travel. When you go to WinStar, they would take care of your health, the future. If you do take the clinical trial, you gain access to new investigational medications or devices not otherwise known, and receive compensation for time and travel. WinStar Medical Research, seeking more answers to the health questions of today. Thanks to our guest tonight. Thank you for listening. Thanks for watching. I'm Buddy Martin. Back tomorrow night with special guests, including Allie and David, right here on The Buddy Martin Show. Good night.